What's up guys, KS here. Thanks for joining me today as always and welcome back to the living room. Now we've been spending a fair amount of time with things like AR9s, PDWs, whatever you want to call them, and over again you guys continue to recommend a very specific one, and that's the Extar EP9. Now this is on loan from Extar and I'm very appreciative of them sending this along for me to take a look at and provide my thoughts to you guys, and I have to say once again, you guys are absolutely right. Now let's hop over to the table and take a look at this thing. I might be going out on a ledge here, but I feel like the segment of the firearms industry that's growing the most right now is the PDW and pistol caliber carbine category. We continue to see new and different offerings ranging in features and price to whet many shooters' appetites. One such offering is the Extar EP9 from Extar. It's a lightweight polymer AR9 style firearm with several features that set it apart from other similar options in the market. Today, we're going to take an up-close look and see if it stacks up to the competition. Before we jump in, I want to thank my Patreons for helping out the channel. You guys and gals are amazing. This is a crowdsourced channel, and becoming a Patreon or simply checking out the links down below to gear I actually use does help keep the content coming, since YouTube no longer supports the channel. I want to give you guys a quick idea of the scale of the Extar, so I brought back the CZ Scorpion Micro, and I'm lining these guys up butt to butt. And I know you can't see the whole thing on screen. The Extar really does stretch the limits of the review table here, but just to give you an idea, again, the Scorpion stops. Now it's totally compressed with its brace, but it stops basically where the barrel begins on the Extar. So very interesting to see these two guys lined up. The Patreons have suggested potentially having an if I could only have one between these two. Let's get a couple of measurements out of the way before we dial this camera in and take a look at the features. This is going to be 24 inches in length, and again, kind of stretching the limits here a little bit. The barrel is 6.5 inches, and it weighs 4.1 pounds. Guys, this thing is exceptionally light, even though it's longer than some of the other popular PDWs on the market. We've brought the camera in just a little bit closer so we can take a look at the features of the Extar, and we'll start with our grip. Now, this is a hard plastic grip, and I will say it's pretty smooth. There is not a lot of texture here, although in this type of platform, I don't consider that anywhere near as big of a deal as perhaps on a handgun, but I bet there's some aftermarket solutions, so you guys are going to have to holler down below if you've done something different on your Extar. Now the trigger guard is a little bit exaggerated, so if you've got gloved hands, man, you're gonna not have any issues at all getting your finger in here and getting to work. I like that, and it actually kind of gives it a little bit of a stylistic cue too. Now we've got our mag port here, or mag well here, and it does take Glock mags. It's one of my favorite features of this. Now it does come with the 17 round PMag, although I typically prefer something like this 24 round or 33 round magazine, something like that. But any of your Glock magazines will work without an issue, and we do have our magazine release right here. You'll notice there is not an ambi safety, although I think that's probably something you could change out as well if you wanted to. Again, being very similar to an AR platform. Now, as we move up to our handguard, you'll notice a couple of things. First, it's cylindrical, so it certainly gives it a very different look, but for those who want to use this as part of their grip, and I'm going to set this down for a moment, you can definitely do that, and you'll notice that there's a little bit of Picatinny rail on the bottom here to hang a few toys if you want to. Now, one thing I will show you, there is a little bit of metal right back here, and my support hand goes right here, and so I noticed after a fair amount of shooting, this thing does get pretty hot, so I could feel it with my index finger, my support index finger. Certainly didn't burn me or anything like that, not a big deal. All guns get hot, but it was one of the few things that I noticed that was a little bit different or a little bit of an oddity versus some of the other PDWs. Again, didn't hurt, it didn't burn me or anything like that. Now we do have our muzzle here, and one thing that's kind of cool, it does have a little port, as you'll see, so it does get some of that gas going upward to drive this down just a little bit, and it is 1/2 by 28 in case you're curious, so you could pop this off and run a can on it. I have plans to do that myself, so I'll do my Omega 45K on this. I think that actually might look really cool as well, so we'll do a follow-up report on that at a later time. But then we've got more Picatinny going all the way across the top to hang all your toys. Now, it does doesn't come with any optics or anything. I do have a Holosun 503 BU, and then some relatively inexpensive backup iron sights just to have something on top to run with. But the Holosun is kind of the main optic on this, and it performed very well. This is a great combo together, and you'll see that I've got the high stand on this. I prefer that, especially having glasses. But again, a lot of Picatinny space for all of your toys and that sort of thing. Now, this whole layout right here is all polymer. Of course, there are steel parts like the barrel and bolt and other parts that absolutely have to be steel, but it otherwise is all polymer, and that's where that weight savings, that just over 4-pound statistic comes in. So very interesting, and when I picked this up for the first time, I was sort of shocked at how light this thing is. Now when we get to our brace, this is an SB Tactical SOB brace. Now I don't have any experience with this other than the Extar here, but I understand that you can adjust it a little bit. You guys are going to have to holler down below and let me know if you have done that. I left it as is. It's just barely long enough for me to be comfortable and run this platform without too much of an issue. But again, I understand you can make some minor adjustments, but it's not something that is adjustable with various adjustment points, like some other braces, that sort of thing. So it might be something you might want to maybe change out depending on what would work with the Extar platform. But there's the right side. We'll take a look at the left side here in just a moment. All right, we flipped the EP9 around so we can take a look at the controls on the left side. Now, most everything is laid out like a typical AR with one major exception, and that's going to be this non-reciprocating charging handle. Now, I gotta say, I love charging handles. I think it just adds to the cool factor, and it's something very different. It's not that back or rear charging handle that you would expect in an AR. This is absolutely fantastic, but it's not going to be reciprocating during shooting, so it's not going to shock you or hit anything, whatever. It just is a different way to run the bolt, which is a blowback design, by the way, in case you're curious. And we'll talk a little bit more about how all of that works here in just a moment. But then as we move down, we do have our bolt release, and we'll go ahead and release that guy, and it works quite well, just as expected. And then we do have our safety lever. Again, very nice. It's not too firm and it's not too light. Snaps into place as expected. And then our polymer trigger here, we'll go ahead and do this. Probably won't do the reset. There's just not enough room on the table, but it's actually a really pleasant trigger pull. This is not bad at all. It's not terribly light, but it's not terribly heavy either, coming in around 7 pounds or so. And for this type of platform, it's exactly as I would expect. Now, there is also a QD attach point right here in the back. So if you want to throw a sling on here or anything like that, you definitely can. Now, I mentioned this is a blowback design. While shooting, there was one real shocker with this. It's incredibly pleasant to shoot. I don't feel that bolt hardly at all, and the muzzle barely moves. So the design of this, the way they put all this together with the polymer and the bolt system that they've used, the buffer tube, the whole package here, it is, I mean, it's just incredibly fun to shoot and very, very accurate. All right, we're going to do a quick disassembly of the EP9 just to give you guys an idea of how easy it is to clean and maintain this guy. And you'll see there is one single pin right here above the safety. It's not like the 2-pin design on most ARs, but all you have to do is push that pin in. Then I'm going to flip this guy around, and that pin is on the other side. It's captive, but all you have to do is tug that out like so, and now this thing is ready to break apart. So I'm going to go ahead and break this guy apart. Now we're going to take the barrel out, and the barrel is just a little bit tight in here, so the table is going to go a little nuts, but we will eventually get the thing out. So there is your bolt right there, and it's relatively heavy, it's relatively substantial, but again, a blowback design. But even though it's a little bit substantial, you hardly feel it while you're shooting, and cleaning this thing is an absolute breeze. You'll see there's a little bit of oil on it right now. I did just clean it the other day. I've put quite a few rounds through this thing because it's a little bit addictive. Now, getting the bolt back in is, well, it actually went in a little bit easier than the last take on this, but it just sits right back in, and now we can get our lower receiver and get it all put back together. And this part will be the trick, of course, but it should snap together like so, and we'll get our pin in, flip it around, and that's it. That's the disassembly of the Extar EP9. Actually really easy. The shooting experience with the lightweight Extar far exceeded expectations. Weight generally translates into better recoil reduction, but in the case of the Extar, recoil was virtually non-existent. The ergos are very AR-like, which will agree with most shooters and make for an excellent training platform. The Picatinny rail has enough real estate for most common optics and backup irons. The SB tactical brace was comfortable and placed out just far enough for a comfortable trigger reach. I'd prefer something adjustable, but this will do just fine. The front of the magwell was a great spot for my support hand and kept the gun firmly planted. My one complaint with the EP9 was with the metal portion of the handguard. After a fair amount of shooting, it got quite hot and my support hand could really feel it. Aside from that minor observation, it's ideal for new and younger trigger pullers and an inexpensive training option for ARs. Well guys, there you have it, the Extar EP9, and I have to say I can see why you like it. This thing is fantastic. Comes in around 24 inches long, 4 pounds. It takes Glock mags. It's got last round hold open, and the clincher is it's about $400. I don't think you can beat that, especially for what you're getting in this little firearm. And you can throw it in a bag, take it with you on the go. You'll hardly notice it's there. So guys, be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know your experience with the Extar and other similar firearms and what types of comparisons you want to see. I'll be very curious to hear your thoughts down below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time.